Last week we talked about an article revolving around emotional intelligence. So I found this article a few weeks back. Colin Powell passed away at 84, a military leader, political leader, and they had his, in a book that he published, I think in 1989, yes, 1989, he published these, what he calls 13 rules for emotional leadership. And so we covered the first 7 last week, and I'll briefly go over those and then roll into the last 6, which I'm excited to talk about today. So, rule 1: it ain't as bad as you think. It will look better in the morning. So we talked a little bit about how taking some time, separating the emotion from the actual decision that you are about to make is imperative as a leader. Rule number 2, get mad and then get over it. Again, much in the same vein as rule 1. As a leader, you have to be able to separate the emotional piece of our human wiring. We are all emotional creatures. Things are going to piss us off. Things are going to make us mad. That person who cut you off in traffic, that's going to make you mad. Being able to separate that from the decision you make next prevents road rage. Outside of that, when you roll that into leadership, so a coworker may make you mad. They may do something that you can't understand why they would do that, or I've told you how many times and you continue to do it wrong. Getting mad is going to be a natural emotion. It's not, how do I not get mad at all? You're going to get mad. We're human. But how do we separate that when we go to coach that person on what it is that what right looks like in that particular situation? Rule number 3, this was one of my favorites and one that I have to continually work on in my own personal life as well as work life, is don't become so attached to an argument that if it fails, your ego goes with it. So we talked a little bit about this, is that in leadership, it's not about being right. I said towards the end of the talk as we were wrapping up is that, in leadership, no one gives a shit about your opinions or your ideas or your grand plans. Your job as a leader is to create an environment and support those that you are leading. It's to lead as a servant. How can I help you? How can I, even if you do have a good idea, how do I facilitate an environment to where my people, those that I'm leading, they come up with the idea. They come up with the solution to the problem. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to follow somebody who's a dictator. Now, over the course of human history, people have, maybe against their will. But that is not a sustainable type of leadership, as we've seen from history as well. Rule number 4, it can be done. So we'll talk a little bit about this today. Some of the back-end rules refer to, kind of that optimism and attitude that you need to take into leadership. But, I'm sure we can all point to periods in our professional career and our personal lives where, you followed a pessimistic leader and it was like the sky is falling every day. And wow, what a crappy place to be. But we can probably all find ourselves or examples of such in the past where we followed a leader that had a it can be done attitude. We just got to figure it out. And in my mind, everything can be figured out. Everybody has done things. It may not be the easiest, or we may have to go at it a little bit different way, but whatever it is that you set out to do, it can be done. Rule 5, be careful what you choose. You may get it. And so this refers to understanding that there is times when we have to slow down to make the right decision, and that it's okay to go slow at first, because ultimately going slow into important decisions will ultimately lead to speed later. I'm a big believer in speed. As people have seen, as they've started here, our pace here is very fast. But there's also times that even I need to be reminded that we need to slow down to make a decision. And I think that we've grown into that, and we've grown into that a lot this year, where when something gets brought up, it's, hey, we need to take a step back because we need to involve these 4 other departments, because it's really, this decision is going to affect all of them down the line. And, I think we've done a lot better job at that. As we've moved forward, we've gotten feedback from the field. A lot of times in our industry, a lot of process and procedures created in the office and then thrown on the staff in the field, only to have them go, what in the hell are you talking about? Like, this doesn't work. And so we've done things, I just talked in a meeting the other day where we did a pilot test and we did roundtables with people from all of the stakeholders that would be involved in this new membership process that we're doing. And what we found is that by slowing down that, hey, we're just going to do it like this, is we tested, got feedback from all angles, and then what it created was a really great process. We learned a lot of things in a small group, and now as we roll it out, we'll pick up that speed that we're looking for. Rule 6, don't let adverse facts stand in the way of a good decision. So, you're never going to have all of the facts. Sometimes people are paralyzed by trying to gain all of the facts to make a decision. And while you have to balance this with the rule that we just talked about, a lot of times you've got to go. I famously remember this when I first moved back here, and I wanted to get into, thought I was like Johnny real estate investor. Like, I'm going to do this thing. You watch out. I'll be on HGTV and here pretty soon, doing my own show. This will be great. Got this grand idea. And started out, went to seminars, read books. The thing I never did was actually buy a house. And that was critical to being a real estate investor. You're not technically an investor until you actually buy a home. And so we finally got to the point we go, I think we're just going to have to buy one and screw it up. And God, we did. The one thing I'll remember, I'll tell you guys, this is just a little tip, side note here. If you ever have to pull up laminate flooring and or the sticky carpet, they make a tool that you can rent for, I think it's $75 a day, and it will pull that up. I say that because my partner and I, we tore by hand in the middle of winter squared carpet out of a 2,300 square foot home. That was learning, but we had to buy the house to do that. But I did find out later there is a tool for that. I would recommend that. If you have any questions, feel free to I'll set you up with that tool. It's awesome. It rips right through that stuff. A lot less physical labor involved in that piece. So, getting back to leadership and not flipping homes. Rule 7: you can't make someone else's decision, and don't let others make yours. You have to understand that people are going to have their own way of thinking, and it's your job as a leader to understand that. It's your job to come from a place of understanding as opposed from a place of wanting to instruct and running to run over their understanding of how something should be done. And that is all about creating that environment where your people can thrive, because it's okay to be in their skin. It's okay to think about problems differently than you think about problems. That's okay. But it's our job as the leader to make that okay. It's not our job as the leader to say, well, everybody should make decisions and think about things the way that I think about things. That will get you nowhere. So you may have people that, as it relates to the disc profile, that are completely different than you. What do they say? There's 40% of the population is an S, and then, the other 60% is kind of broken up around the other 3. Well, if you look at that, if you're one of the other 3, like, you're in the minority already. And so understanding that from the outset, people aren't going to think like you, and that's okay, is critical to being an effective leader. Because no one wants to be told how to think. No one. Because that's how you're wired. You can't change that. You know, you'll see people on a disc profile shift a little bit just in their experiences, but they're not going to usually flip completely. You know what? That is a great way of thinking about things. I think I'll rewire my brain to think like that. No, that's how you think. That's how you problem solve. So understanding that your team is going to be of all different makes and models, and they're going to look at the same problem and have different ways of attacking it, and that's okay. It's not the time to get frustrated. It's not the time to make that decision for others. So that was the first 7. I wanted to recap that a little bit and then dive into our last 6. So starting with rule number 8, check small things. So it says in the article, emotionally intelligent people adopt this practice for a very simple reason: to avoid letting their optimism, excitement, or sheer busyness lead them to assume things are working out. So again, this, check the small things, what's this relate to? Well, this relates to our kind of company rallying around a one-on-one meeting with an employee. That's the small things, right? In the grand scheme of things, are we going to be more effective putting in a furnace or a water heater today if I sit down for 15 to 20 minutes with someone who reports to me and just ask them how life's going? Hey, what you got going on this weekend? How's whatever situation I know you were going through last week? Well, that would seem as though it's a small thing, but what I would tell you is that the most effective leaders look at that as a large thing. That's a big piece. Because as we think about who we would want to follow, who we would want to go into a difficult situation with, we'd want to go in with people that care about us. And I can tell you as a leader, understanding that about people makes it a hell of a lot easier to lead them to. Because you're not always questioning in your head, why the hell are they doing that? Why are they acting like that? So weird. Why are they all down in the dumps? Well, when you take the step to figuring out why and how you can, you may not be able to fix it. You can't fix maybe a personal situation that they're going through, but you can at least say, hey, if you need to talk to anybody, I'm here for you. Or, hey, keep your head up. It'll be okay. And I'm here. If you need to talk. If you don't, that's great too. It's those small things as a leader that people will latch onto. I'm a huge believer in thank you notes. Well, that takes about 10 minutes of my time each morning. But it's a good 10 minutes. I get excited to think about people that are doing fantastic things out there and just to say, hey, great job. Awesome. And it may take all of 5 seconds for them to read the 3 sentences that I put in there, but they know I care. Because I do. That makes this whole thing fun, right? To see people doing fantastic things. To see them doing something small, but to acknowledge it makes it big. And using those big things that were once small will make you a more effective leader. Because people latch onto that. I still have a note from my college football coach that he wrote me when I was a freshman. I was 18 years old? Well, that was 17 years ago. Still have it. Because that was really powerful. All about the small things. How can you on your team find out about those small things? Even if you aren't in a, quote, leadership position or whatever that term means, how can you facilitate that on your team? How can you ask how someone's day is going? Hey, do you need any help with that? Let me assist. I'll give you a hand. All of those things build up over time. Hey, they were super like caring about what I was going through or what I was doing, or, said hey on, my dog's birthday or whatever, whatever it may be. Rule 9, share credit. I have kind of a rule in leadership that if you find yourself taking credit for ideas, you may be in the wrong. Even if you come up with a great idea, how easy is it to create an environment where you can pass off the credit to somebody else? Here's an example. You may come up with an idea that on paper, it's going to work. It's got a high, you've done this before, you get it. But what does it look like if you take that idea and say, hey, do you want to try this out? Just pulling someone aside and saying, hey, do you mind trying this out today? I just got this wild hair, it's probably not going to work, whatever. But do you mind trying it out? Yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. Okay. And it works. What's it look like to give that person the credit for it? What's it look to put your ego aside and try to find wins for your team? Not wins for yourself. Not, ooh, I told everybody that idea was going to work. I'm so smart. Everybody look at me. But what if you found wins for your team? What if that was your objective? Now, harder for sure, because it'd be just really easy just to take credit for it and say, yeah, that was a great idea. Everybody do it now. That'd be great. Well, where do you think the buy-in level is on something like that? Even if it works. I've seen this before. I've seen people stand up here and tell them that this is the greatest idea and we're going to do it now and this will be fantastic. And it works, but they get about half the people to buy in. Because the other half are literally content on making sure that it doesn't work. Because God forbid they change. And you're going to have that. This is why I'm so, the one thing I actually was speaking at Nexstar, and I mentioned this because they were talking about feedback from your people. And I said, the most important thing that I have found in leadership is, we do Amplify quarterly. And I said, the one thing we do is encourage our managers to take the results into the meeting, say, this is what we found, this is what's wrong, how do you propose we fix it? I said, selfishly, I'd rather them do the work than me. I don't want to come up with any grand ideas. One, I don't know how to fix that. Two, they'll tell me exactly how to fix that. Well, we got to fix this. Okay, well, how do you propose we do that? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, let's start throwing around some ideas. Let's figure it out. Nexstar is famous for saying that the answer is in the room. It's true. It always is. But you have to understand that the answer is in the room and go find it in the room. It's not going to come from you. So how do you do that? How do you go into the next time that you have this grand idea and make it something that your team discovers? That's when ideas truly gain traction. And they'll run a hell of a lot faster with their own idea that they came up with than yours. Powell writes, as it relates to sharing credit, he's quoted as saying, people need recognition and a sense of worth as much as they need food and water. Think about that. People need recognition and a sense of worth as much as they need food and water. Think about the last time you did something and wish someone would have said, hey man, thanks, appreciate that. That feeds us. We're wired to want recognition. A sense of, hey, good job. Hey, you did that right. So give it. Give it to your team. That's what they need. It's fun. It really is. It makes life a heck of a lot more fun. when you're walking around the building looking for people that are doing great things and just telling them, hey, awesome stuff, appreciate you. That's great. Oftentimes we'll start out meetings with something we're grateful for, or one we did here recently, which I really liked, was, acknowledge someone in the room that's helped you out. That was really cool. You could literally see the mood of the room change. You could feel it. It was almost like everybody's connected now. Like, this person thanks this person's really grateful for this person, so on and so forth, and everybody's connected because we're all sharing credit. And it wasn't like you were trying to take credit. So that's where people get confused too. It's like, I wasn't trying to take credit for it. Well, yeah, but were you acknowledging that someone else had a great idea? Or acknowledging that someone else did a really great job? Try to do that today. Just try to find somebody who's doing a good job and just say, hey, you're doing awesome. I really appreciate you. Watch that spiral. The fastest way to becoming a leader is simply telling others that they're doing a good job. Because guess what? People will follow that person because they like them. They trust them. They understand that that person sees value in them. So you naturally want to follow those people. What do I always say? Leadership's super simple. Be nice, support others, right? Super simple. So when we try to make it complicated, and we try to do the reverse and then try to lead, that's when it gets really hard. Because telling people what to do and not acknowledging anybody for their efforts, it's really difficult to get people to follow you leading like that. I can tell you. That won't be good. I mean, more power to you if you feel like you can make it work, but I would tell you there's a lot easier way. It's a lot more fun too. Was that 9? Yeah, that was 9. All right, cool. Thought I missed one. Number 10, remain calm and be kind. Anxiety breeds anxiety. Calm begets calm. This is one of my favorites. I love this because this is the piece of creating the environment that I think is so very important. Because especially in our business, when we are emergency service, the first reaction that most people have is to panic. Ah! Phone won't stop ringing. How are we going to get all these calls? What are we going to do? What I always lean on is that for 35 years, we've always figured it out. So we'll probably figure it out today. That's a lot of days of figuring it out. I can't do the math in my head, but it's a lot. The more that you can remain calm, even if you're a little bit stressed out, that's okay. Go be stressed out behind a closed door. And then come out with an attitude of, we'll figure this out. It's not that big of a deal. Because guess what? It's not. We put in furnaces and water heaters. Not the end of the world. We'll be okay. That's what we're doing. Literally. There's like a unit in someone's house. We put those in. That's what we do. Very simple. But when we make it complicated is when anxiety comes in. Oh my God, I can't believe we do that. Okay. It'll be fine. Not the end of the world. We'll figure it out. Someone made a mistake. Whoop-de-doo. It'll be okay. Trust me. Just apologize. Sorry. We didn't mean to do that. We literally didn't mean to do that. But we did it. So, okay. Move on. It's the people who can adopt that philosophy. Because Who has ever followed a leader that like gets anxious like all the time? Like it's just like Frazzleville, USA. Like, calm down, it will be fine. You have to have, whether you have a plan or you don't, act like you do. And a great way to act like you do is say, it'll be okay, we'll figure it out. Just, yeah, we got a plan. Even when you don't. That's fine too. But people will start to follow that. Oh, okay, well, it sounds like he's got a plan. No, I said we'll figure it out. I don't have a plan yet, but, whatever you want to think. But they'll start to follow you. It's the person that's like, oh my God, sky's falling. This is terrible. Like, who wants to follow that person? The sky's falling. I don't want to follow them into the place where the sky's falling. Seems silly. I want to follow somebody who thinks that, well, maybe there's a solution to this problem. Remain calm and be kind. Create the environment. What kind of environment do the people you lead want to be in? What's that look like? Does anyone want to be in an anxiety-ridden environment? No. Maybe you do, but you ain't going to be in any environment I'm in. Where there's calm and collected. And that's not to say I don't get anxious. I have 2 little kids at home. Anxiety runs through our house. How are we going to get here on time? Why did someone just throw something at the wall? What's going on here? I think the kids have taken over the home. And I don't even have the most kids in here. I get a little anxious at home. Crazy. But remain calm and be kind. At the end of the day, it's going to be okay. It'll be all right. We'll figure it out. Rule 11, have a vision. So this goes with the environment that you're creating. So we're going to create this environment, but then how are we going to lead people through while creating that environment? So having a vision is extremely critical, and we have learned this so many times here. I was actually just talking about it on a podcast interview that I did last week with Tom Mascari, who is the president of Mendel Heating and Plumbing up in Chicago. And we were talking about this concept of creating the vision. I said, that we first learned this back in, it had been 2015, 16, when we wanted to grow the company, but the comment that we kept making is, I don't know if we can grow this because we can't get anybody else here to think like we do, strategically. And what we found out is that it wasn't their fault. We never wrote anything down about where we were going. How were they supposed to think like we thought? Just magically, oh, I see what's in his head. No. And as a leader, oftentimes you've got the plan between your ears. You can see it. You can see where we're going and what that looks like and all the issues that we're going to tackle, but those that you're leading, they may not see that. In fact, it's going to be very hard for them to see exactly what you see. I don't even think that physically makes sense. I don't think they can see what you see. I think that is fairly impossible. So let's go with that and understand that you have to lay out that vision for those that you lead. And sometimes we can be fearful of that because we're dreaming big. And we're not sure if our team's going to latch on to that big dream that we have or where we want to take this or whatever it is. What I can tell you is there may be a little bit of anxiety at first when you present that big vision, but what I've learned is the bigger, the better. This is where we're going. How are we going to get there? People want to know where they're going. People want to know what that may look like. And you may not have all the answers. Hey, we're going to get to this point, and I'm not really sure how to handle that because we've never been there. But by God, as a team, we're going to figure it out when we get there. So I may need your help at that point. May need your help getting to that point and then getting over that point. What does that vision look like? Take time, sit down. What do you want it to look like, more importantly? The best part about being a leader is you get to craft that. Same thing in our personal lives. We get to determine what it is that we want to do. Who's ever thought about what your life's going to look like in 5 years? What your life's going to look like in 10? What you want it to look like? What I can tell you is, from a personal perspective, if you write that down and really get clear on what it is and what it feels like to be in that place, you're going to get there. And make it bigger. Start small if you want, but I'm telling you, it will work. I never thought I'd be standing up here, but I knew what it felt like. We always wanted to build a company like this. I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't know how to get there. I didn't know what that looked like. We stumbled a lot. We figured some things out along the way. But the minute that we wrote that down for the company is the minute that we took off. When you write that down, when you inform your team where you are going, that is one of the most powerful things that you can do. Because then, what do they talk about? I need everybody rowing in the same direction, right? They ain't going to row in the same direction if they don't know what direction you're going in. It's very impossible to do that. So write it down and show them. Here's where I think we should go. And then, hey, is there anything that you'd like to add to this? Anything you'd like to see happen or that you think should happen or that would make it better? Okay, let's collaborate. Let's get all this on paper. Let's figure this out. Okay, now what's the first step? How are we going to get there? Well, we need to do this. Okay, perfect. Let's tackle that first, and then we'll worry about the other stuff after we get this first thing done. Have a vision. You're not telling everybody how to get there, but someone's got to set the path. Someone's got to put down where it is that this place is going, or your department's going. Or even more personal, where are you going? Take some time. I tell you, this is writing down your own personal vision of where you want to be and what that looks like, and then thinking about it every single day. Everybody's got to drive into work, some longer than others. What if you took that time and turned off the radio and thought about where you're going to be and what that looks like and what things you need to accomplish today to pull you closer to that? It's powerful. It's powerful stuff. That's how the best of the best get there. They write it down and they think about it every waking moment that they can about what that's going to feel like when they get there and how they're going to do it. And the great thing about it is a lot of people aren't doing that, so there's not going to be a whole lot of people in your way. You'll find that out as well. Not a lot of people are doing it. Someone's got to, right? I've always kind of adopted that when it comes to the vision as well. I mean, someone's got to do it. Might as well be me. I'll write it down. Have a vision. Have a vision for your own life. Have a vision for your department. Have a vision for where you want to be. Number 12, don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers. Again, fear is something natural, sometimes useful. You know, there's situations where you need to be fearful. Don't do that. Don't speed. Don't do crazy stuff. But there's also an understanding to acknowledge that fear, and as I talked about in the recap, separate it from the decision that you're going to make. Any decision that you're going to make that is going to move you forward, there's going to be some fear involved in what you do. There has to be. You're moving to a place you've never been. Fear is only natural. But we have to understand how we separate that. Because as I said with my rental house, there was some fear involved. Like, oh boy, we don't know what in the heck we're doing. But we got a house. We did all right. We sold that house, thank God. But that fear was like, oh, okay, well, we got to figure this out. So we figured out a lot of things on the fly. But the great thing is that every step we took was sometimes a misstep, like when they shut off the gas because we forgot to set up the gas in our name. Okay, well, they turned off the gas. Nothing to get crazy about, but we probably need to go and call the gas company, have them turn that sucker back on because it's cold out. There was a lot of things that we made missteps on that we could have been fearful of. And what would have fear led to? It would have led to me never buying a house. It would have just been me reading books. Oh, you're reading that real estate? Oh, yeah, big time real estate investor. Oh, really? How many houses? I don't have a house yet. Just merely studying. Just studying. It's all good. There will be a day. That would have been fear. I mean, fear at some point in time did kind of consume me because we hadn't bought one yet. We needed to buy it. Think about those decisions in your life where there's a little bit of fear involved. Now, I'm not saying just run out the door and just go do it, but you can plan to figure it out. There's a way. What was the other rule that we talked about? Have a can-do attitude. Yeah, rule number 4, it can be done. So those decisions where fear is creeping in, what would it take to figure out a way how to do it? I'm fairly confident you can figure it out. Rule 13, and my favorite, and one that drives my wife crazy. Perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. My wife classifies herself as a realist. I am not that, apparently. So, optimism is a force multiplier. So we talked a little bit about this earlier of remaining calm, be kind, don't take counsel of your fears or naysayers. Perpetual optimism. So there is a point to take stock of what's really happening, 100%. Like, I'm not saying go out there and think everything is roses. Because it's not. Sometimes stuff sucks. But at the same time, if we dwell in that, if we dwell in sky is falling, this is terrible, I don't know what to do, what's going to happen, guess what we're never going to do? Move from that place. A lot of people I have found are fearful of optimism because they're like, well, I have something right now going on that sucks. It's not good. How am I supposed to be optimistic about that? Well, think about what you can learn from it. There's been sucky stuff that happens to everybody. It's life, right? Things are going to happen. I'm not here saying that, hey, if you put a smile on your face, everything will be okay. It's not it. But making the decision to learn from whatever happens, to me, that's optimism. You can acknowledge that something isn't good. If you don't, I'm a little worried about you. I've acknowledged that a couple times this year, but, things went bad, and it's like, crap, this really sucks. I wish this wasn't happening, for sure. I got a pretty good idea what I would hope would happen, but it's not happening. But understanding that it'll be okay. We'll figure out a way while this sucks, we'll figure out a way to get through this. We're going to learn as much as we possibly can to move to a better spot. Anytime someone brings something negative to me, okay, well, we'll figure it out. Not the end of the world. We'll get it. We'll come up with a plan. We'll tackle it. Things will fall in place. Because what happens When I talk about a force multiplier, when you're looking for an answer, guess what you'll find? An answer. When you are convinced that there is no worse situation that you are in, guess what you're going to find? Yourself still in that worst situation. You are not going to find the answer to your problem thinking that there is no answer. Again, we've talked about a lot of stuff that physically doesn't make sense today. That physically does not make sense. No one has ever set out, oh my God, worst thing that's ever happened, never going to find an answer for this problem sucks, and then all of a sudden ran into the answer that got them on the right path. That ain't going to happen. Your optimism will lead you to the answer. It will lead your team to the answer. Let it lead you. Let your attitude about the situation, about whatever it is that you're going through, let that lead you to the answer. Create the environment in your team where we will find the answer. Sky is not falling. The sky is only falling when we're looking for it to fall. When you don't look for it to fall, when you realize that maybe it's just a cloudy day, maybe it's just a little bit of rain, but guess what? The rain stops, the clouds will break, the sun will come back out. I'm a huge believer. When I talked about vision, feeling where you want to be, it goes back to this. If you never think about where you're going to be, guess who's going to take you to where you're going to end up? Others. Not you. Take control of your life. Take control of your leadership. Understand where you want to go. Let optimism guide you, and you will find the answers. I'm telling you, man, this stuff, it can seem overwhelming. Like, how am I supposed to do that? If you go out there with a positive attitude today, acknowledge people for doing great things, you will get to where you want to go. I'm telling you, it is contagious. A positive attitude, optimism, having a vision, embracing the small things, all of that is leadership. Guess what? That shit's really easy to do. You just got to do it on a daily basis. That is where the leaders of this company will come from. Those people who can do those small things. Because that's what this is about. People will follow those people. You don't have to have all the greatest of ideas. But creating that environment to where your team can come up with those ideas and figure it out, that's a powerful place. Great thing about being a leader is you don't have to have any great ideas. You just facilitate an environment where your team comes up with them. Now, you may have to implement some things. You may have to remove some obstacles for your team so that they can realize what it is that they're trying to do, or they can reach their goal. But at the end of the day, leadership is just about creating an environment. And if you don't technically lead anybody right now, guess what? When you create that environment around yourself, people will naturally gravitate towards you. People will want to follow you. Even if you're not technically on the org chart, someone that they should follow, what happens? Oh, that's the ringleader of that crew right there. How do you become the ringleader? Well, you have all the optimism. You have all the, it'll be okay. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Patting people on the back. Moving forward. That's how you become the ringleader. That's how you become that person that people want to follow. If I can stress anything as I've stressed here at the end, leadership is super simple, guys. You have a chance to be a leader today. When you walk out that door, Go pat someone on the back. Tell them they're doing a great job. Tell them you appreciate what they're doing. You do that on a consistent basis, and people will follow you. You don't have to get any title that says you're a leader. You don't have to get a manager role. You don't have to do anything. That will come if that's what you want. But it starts today in acknowledging those that you're working with and those that you're influencing.